Shaw with you, breaking down a 6-game slate. It is, of course, Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. Adam, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to bouncing back from last night and way too much Luka and too much. I was underweight on Len, but still had too much Len. Looking forward to the new slate.
Yeah, Len. That was not what you would call a solid performance whatsoever. That was pretty brutal, actually, and I was surprised to see how bad it could get. Like it only got worse as it went on. It only got worse, and it wasn't. I mean, seriously, he came back. I saw him get a couple minutes from. By the way, you may have been for some reason your mic was muted. Yeah. I got it. So, Alex Len comes into this game, gets a couple minutes in at the end of the second quarter. I'm like, all right, you got 2 and 2 right now. Give me 2 points, 2 more rebounds, and like a block, something. And it just never happened.
Yeah, it was just a weird slate altogether. Like we talked about how there was value at center and how tough it was to pay up because one of those guys would probably do well. McGee sucked, Len sucked, Pirtle sucked. If you paid up at center, you probably had a pretty good night.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I ended up doing all right, and it was surprising because I had Len and Diallo. I didn't multi-enter, but I had Len and Diallo, and I think the relatively lower-owned Buddy Hield had a lot to do with it. But
yeah, I was winning the $700 like partway through the Lakers game, but then I ended up not even cashing. So
it came. So wait, I'm assuming
it was because I had Kelly Oubre.
Did you have no Rondo?
Not in that lineup, no.
Yeah, that would probably. I was surprised that he was only like 26 in the 77. He was 28%, which seemed low to me, but I don't know. I think people were afraid that he wasn't going to get the minutes, but that was one game. Prior to that, he'd get a lot of minutes. So, anyway, today is a new day. We turn the page. So let's jump right into it. We've got 6 games, a pretty spread out slate in terms of game time. So we'll start with, we got 2 7 p.m. games. We'll start with Indy and Chicago. Hey, by the way, happy to have you guys with us, as always. Pacers, at home, 6.5-point favorites, 219 total. Even without Oladipo, they've been a decent enough team. Josh and I talked about it on the strategy show this morning. On DraftKings, you have, Sabonis out. You have Turner at 57. You got Thad Young at 59. You got Bogdanovich at 56. You've got Collison at 55. They're all in this exact same tier, and they're all the guys that if they get you 35, you're generally wiping the sweat off your forehead.
Yeah, the pricing on Indiana is much more appealing on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel. Miles Turner is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate on DraftKings, in particular at 5,700. I really like Thad Young, who averages about 0.9 fantasy points per minute without Sabonis or Oladipo. I like the $5,500 price tag on Collison. It's not an appealing game from a pace standpoint, but not a very good Chicago defense. So I think that all 3 of those guys I'll have a lot of on DraftKings, much less on FanDuel because they're priced up there. And, I'll still have some because pricing in general on FanDuel is tough. But on DraftKings, the pricing is just much, much more favorable.
Yeah, it's a lot more favorable. The thing, too, about like Miles Turner, when you just break this game down, you're like, man, Miles Turner is such a fantastic play. And did he ask when I'm going to shave? Bro, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, man? Looking rough. Get out of here with that shit. Looking good. Oh, Miles Turner, though, you look at him and then don't compare it to the other centers. Once you start looking at the other centers on this slate, in that range, there's so many of them. So where do you prioritize guys like Turner when we have, we're in the first game, and you know exactly where I'm going with this. There are a lot of mid-range centers that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I have him behind Gasol, who I'll say now is my favorite center on the slate. And that's actually regardless of site. So I have him behind Gasol. I like him a little bit more than Adams. I still like Adams at his price point, but I have Turner a little bit ahead of him. Trying to get my Cruncher stuff up right now. There it goes. On DraftKings, I have Gasol, then Turner, and this is in order of my exposures on my initial crunch. Gasol, then Turner, then Green, then Valanciunas, then Adams.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of names. So, well, have you run crunches yet for DraftKings?
Yeah, that's what I just read.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading the chat. I'm not even going to pretend that I misheard you. I was about to. I was about to make something up. Like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. But that's exactly what I meant. What about exposures to the other Indiana players, though?
Yeah, Turner was my highest owned guy out of the group. Then it was Collison, not too far behind Turner, and then Young, still as a Young at like 25%, but behind Turner and Collison.
Anything else you want to talk about with the Pacers here? It's really one of those teams where it's like, yep, they're priced perfectly fine. I don't hate them, but it's hard to ever say anything really great about these guys.
Yeah, I mean Turner, like, yeah.
See what I mean? It's not easy.
Yeah. They're like point per minute guys in these conditions. So it's whatever. I have on FanDuel, Young's actually my highest owned Indiana player.
On FanDuel, Young is? Okay.
Yeah, by a lot.
On the other side of this game, you've got the Bulls. They're 6.5-point road dogs. They're playing better lately. I mean, they really haven't been that bad. They've won, I think, like 4 of their last 6 or something, 5 of their last 7. They're actually playing better than we had seen all season, which is not saying much, but they've actually been pretty good. So I think 5 of their last 7. Markkanen stands out as a pretty decent play only because his price is down and he continues to put up very solid numbers. Aside from that, are you getting to Chris Dunn? I know he's cheap, but I still don't end up with a whole lot, even at that price tag. I just feel like he's been killed by Levine and Markkanen and even now Otto Porter in the lineup. What are you doing with this Bulls team in the starting lineup?
You get into a lot less of Chicago, just a difficult matchup here against Indiana. I don't have a problem with Markkanen or Levine. It's just that I have guys that I like more. At power forward, it's not even that it's a particularly strong position, but the mid-range, I think, does have enough guys with upside where I'd rather save some money and go there. And then at point guard, you just have – I'm not really that interested in Dunn here when he's the same price point as, guys like Collison and Schroeder and Jeff Teague. So I'm not really getting to much Chicago.
I'm not either. Markkanen to me is fine. By the way, big news. This may not seem big to anybody else, but yeah. I mentioned on the strategy show that I expected Jonah Bolden to play a lot more than 22 minutes today. Foul trouble 3 times against the Warriors, was playing well. He is ruled out. So Amir Johnson will play, but Mike Scott probably gets a lot of run. We will get to this in the next game, Adam, but Jonah Bolden not playing is actually bigger news than it might seem like on this slate. So we'll get there. I guess we can get there now. Do you want to talk any more about Chicago?
No, on my initial crunch, I got like 12% Markkanen, and that's like my high guy on Chicago.
Right. And then you have Otto Porter, but he's kind of a take it or leave it player, on
better on FanDuel.
Sorry?
I said better on FanDuel.
For sure. And right. It's a very weak position. A very, very weak position. It'd be nicer if he had the same price point on FanDuel as he did on DraftKings, but 74 isn't terrible. 13% projected ownership. You can do worse than that. Let's talk about the Sixers in Orlando. Go ahead.
I'll just, speaking of small forward on FanDuel and how weak it is, it's worth pointing out, not that you expect anything from him, but Tyreek Evans is 3,500. Probably plays like 16 minutes, probably doesn't do shit, but he's a guy that, you can put in there.
Fair enough. Philly and Orlando, Sixers 3.5-point favorites, 223 total, or 223.5 total. No Joel Embiid. Pretty big hit there. He did practice yesterday, but he remains out. Adam, if you look at the last game for the 76ers, Jonah Bolden's foul trouble got him several times. He was actually, believe it or not, playing pretty solid defense on DeMarcus Cousins earlier in that game. DeMarcus Cousins came on strong late in the game. Early on, though, really was not. Look, he's still DeMarcus Cousins, but Bolden was playing good enough defense for me to say, hey, you know what? Brett Brown could at least throw him out there over Mike Scott. He has a significant size advantage. He's 6'10". He can play at the 5, especially in this day's basketball or in this age of basketball. But he got in foul trouble several times. He caught his second foul in the second quarter, came out right at that, and then he caught 2 quick ones to start the third quarter, comes back in the fourth quarter, catches another foul, and then he didn't return. If you're wondering why he didn't return, it's very simple. Mike Scott was knocking down every single shot he took. Literally, he was like 6 for 9 from 3, and he was just on fire. He had 11 points in the fourth quarter, just on fire. But Bolden would have got a bunch of minutes. He only ended up playing 23 in that game. Amir Johnson was out, 22, and now Bolden's been ruled out. So let's start there. Let's start in the front court with the Sixers. I think this actually does have implications because from a value standpoint right now, it's not that amazing all the way down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's really not. And I don't think this makes anything amazing. Like the minutes should be there for Mike Scott. It's still Mike Scott. He's someone who very easily can disappoint.
Yep.
But it does give you another, really cheap guy that you can look at. That should at least have the opportunity to do well here. And he is at least capable of doing well. We saw with his time with the Wizards and with the Clippers before that when he gets minutes, he's scoring dependent, but he is capable of putting the ball in the basket. So, I think especially on DraftKings where he's closer to minimum price, like he's 4,500 on FanDuel. I was kind of surprised that he got that expensive that quick, but certainly works as a value play. The minutes kind of have to be there. I have him at like 34 minutes right now. I'm putting Amir at about 14. Give Harris an extra couple minutes, get him up to like 40. But yeah, it's just a really thin front court now.
It's very thin. And like I said, I had Bolden to play around 27, 28 minutes in this game if he was healthy. Don't have to worry about that anymore. I wanted to play him over Scott as well. Like that would have been a pretty easy decision for me to make. But
Is Justin Patton active?
So apparently, he was active but not expected to play. That was either last game or the one before. I can't remember. But he was active. I'm almost certain he was. So he said he doesn't expect to throw him into the rotation right away. It's not crazy to think he picks up like 4 minutes today off the bench.
Yeah, I'm really just trying to figure out where I can throw these minutes without giving Amir Johnson like 24.
Yeah, God, it's really difficult to think that Amir could get even close to that right now.
Is Ennis in?
What's that?
Is Ennis in?
Yeah, but he hasn't been playing, I don't think.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have him at like 4 minutes. I gave Patton 6. Okay, so I have Amir at 14. I have Scott at 34. I have Patton at 6. I have Harris at 40 in the front court.
Okay. Makes sense. I have no problem with that. Well, let's talk about the Sixers rotation outside of this front court. Ben Simmons, $8,400 on DraftKings. He's pieced together some really solid games since Embiid has been out. He had that one bad one against Miami and then New Orleans where he had a double-double in the first half and then disappeared, but 2 straight triple-doubles. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Ben at 8,400. I have no issues going there. And then Tobias Harris at 74 on DraftKings. Jimmy Butler at 7,100. He has the Q tag, but he wasn't even on the injury report last I looked. On FanDuel, Ben Simmons is much more expensive. Adam, 9,900. Butler's 8,400, and Harris is 8K flat. So feel free to differentiate between sites here. I get Orlando's played really solid defense, but the absence of Joel Embiid really mitigates that concern for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of scared of how high I have these guys projected because Orlando has been very good defensively. It is a huge pace down spot for Philadelphia as well. But at the same time, not only do you get more production with Embiid out, but the minutes have just been through the roof.
Huge.
You have Harris with at least 40 minutes, 2 games in a row. Simmons with at least 40 minutes, 2 games in a row. Butler coming in around 37 minutes. The addition of Harris has taken the per minute production of these guys down a bit. Even if you look if you look without Embiid since the trade, they've played 9 games together and they're not producing at the same clip that they were. Butler about 38 fantasy points, Simmons 39 and a half, Harris 36.5 per 36 without Embiid on the floor, but they're just playing so many minutes, and it's a slate where there's not really that many or any like perfect spots where it's a fast-paced team and a bad defense. So you kind of have to just deal with the bad matchups. Simmons obviously is more valuable on DraftKings because of the scoring and also because of his small forward eligibility in addition to his price. But even at 9,900 on FanDuel, I think he's fine because of how many minutes he's playing. Butler's price tag on FanDuel is okay. I think he's a perfectly fine play. On DraftKings, it's pretty clearly just a mistake in price, not to roster him. I mean, you're talking about a guy playing 36 or 37 minutes, averaging a little over a fantasy point per minute. Even if he just hits that average, you're getting him at 36 points and at 7,100, and he obviously can do better than that. So the DraftKings price I think is just incorrect on Butler. Harris, whatever I get of Harris, I'm fine with. I have him behind Butler, I have him behind Simmons, but you're still talking about 40 minutes of Tobias Harris, so no problem there either.
Right. Amir Johnson is starting, by the way, so take that for what it's worth. Not much, but that he might. You might have to up his. You might have to up his minutes a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just giving him those Justin Patton minutes, so I have him at 20.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate, man. I tell you what, it makes it a whole lot more appeal. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we I wanted to segue into Vooch there, but do you have any thoughts on Redick here?
I have him behind the three guys that I just mentioned because his price tag has, at least on FanDuel, his price tag's up to 5,700. On DraftKings, it's 4,800, but there are just so many underpriced guys on DraftKings that I'm still not getting a ton of Redick.
Even since Embiid has been out these 5 games, Redick has like 17% usage. It really has not helped him much. Now that Harris is in the rotation, Redick really needs to be efficient, and if he's not efficient, you're going to be really disappointed with the numbers, and we've seen that, Adam, because he's not doing anything else. There's no rebounds for him. There's no assists to go around. It's pure scoring, and when he's not shooting well, you're basically getting nothing from him.
Yeah, we've seen him take a big hit since Harris came, like you said. Like earlier in the season without Embiid, you're looking at 25, 26% usage for Redick.
Yep.
And now it's sub 20%.
No question. All right, let's talk about Orlando. Vooch against Amir Johnson. That's pretty wild. I guess the question is not do you like Vooch, because there's really no reason not to like him in a vacuum. How much do you like Vooch in terms of working him into lineups here against this depleted Philadelphia front court?
Yeah, my initial crunch on DraftKings, I got a lot less than I was hoping I would. He only came in at like 5%.
Me too.
And it's just because of how there are like 8 underpriced centers on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Vooch is obviously more expensive at 10.5. But the position in general is just tougher to get to. So maybe I'll get a little bit more there. But I still think that for the most part I'm just going to end up in the mid range tonight. I don't feel great about it because again I really do like the spot for Vooch, but it is what it is. There's just so many good mid range centers here.
How many minutes did you say you have for Mike Scott again?
34. I don't feel good about it.
I have him at the same thing. And it's terrible. I just looked over. I was like, wait a second. I gave him oh, God. Like
I mean, he can very easily play like 28, 26, and then Patton plays. Like
I know.
I don't know.
I'm going to bring it down to 32. Moved. I just don't know if I can see Brown giving. That's tough.
He played like 33 last game, right?
Yeah, he did. Bolden was in foul trouble all game, and Amir Johnson was out, though. So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I don't think Amir plays more minutes than Bolden did last game.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Like if he doesn't play, if Scott doesn't play a bunch of minutes here, I don't think it's because of Amir Johnson. I think it's because Justin Patton comes out of nowhere, or some other guy that we don't know is on the team comes out of nowhere, or they just do something really weird with their rotation.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense to me. And beat out at least 2 more games now we're hearing. So this may be a little bit more serious than initially suspected. Yeah, with Vooch, though, do you have a lot of Towns?
I have less Towns than Vooch.
So do I. Yeah, this was a discussion Josh and I got into earlier today. He was that's his highest projected player, his top player for today. And I want to know. We'll get to that game in a minute, but outside of the obvious Vooch play, which is, God, it's so hard for me not to play him. This is such a stupendous spot for Vooch. Would not be surprised to see him triple-double here. I mean, seriously. Outside of him, you have the Fourniers, the Rosses, the Gordons, the Augustines. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon I like quite a bit here because whereas you have Vooch at a position that's just, loaded with talent here, Gordon's at a much weaker position where he's competing with guys like, Thad Young and Jeremy Grant. In that mid-range, and I just like the price tag on him. It is a pace-up spot for Orlando. You obviously are missing a lot in the way of rim protection for Philadelphia, and Gordon is back to playing like 36 minutes a night. We saw Steve Clifford kind of cutting back the starters' minutes for a stretch of games where these guys were all playing like 32, 33 minutes, but that hasn't been the case recently. I have Gordon back in for 36 minutes. The position and the price tag make me really interested in him as I think my highest owned guy on the team. Terrence Ross, I think it's a good spot for him. He's coming in around like 15% for me. Jonathan Isaac, I don't really play very often, but he's worth pointing out just because he is a small forward on FanDuel where we really need all the small forward help that we can get. So, pretty appealing there as well. He came in around 17% in my initial FanDuel crunch.
Okay.
My God, I'm punting small forward a lot on FanDuel.
Yeah.
I just looked at my exposures. Like, they're disgusting.
Maybe are you going any Kawhi today? I know that's your favorite player.
My initial crunch had 5% Kawhi, 97% Durant.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
20% CJ Miles, 20% McKinney, 18% Tyreek Evans.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, that's brutal. How much Isaac?
17%.
17% Isaac. All right, then. What about Fournier on DraftKings?
I hope not. I'm looking now. I don't think I got there.
All right. I guess
I'd rather play Ross.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion this morning. Ross for me as well. Simply just due to the fact that, well, yeah, I'll tell you why. He's cheaper, and both of them are so damn similar. Ross is still a relatively high usage player, so I really have no issues getting the Ross, but only if I have to. None of these guys are huge.
My initial crunch on DraftKings looks like 17% Ross and 0 Fournier.
Okay. Well, there you have it then. Anything else for this game?
Nope. I need to find ways to get to Vooch, but it's tough.
It is, but you feel like it's necessary, especially if Amir... I mean, think about this. This would be a spot where Patton plays, like, at least some... I don't know. But if Amir Johnson and Mike Scott are manning the center position for 48 minutes or 44 minutes, Vooch needs to have a historically bad performance, like, in his own right to not... I don't know. Like, this is such an outstanding... I'm lost for words on it. Which means he'll probably end up sucking. You know, these premier spots never end well. But go ahead.
So I mean, the thing for me with Vooch is, not only is the center position stacked, and this is obviously talking DraftKings, but not only is the center position stacked with underpriced guys, but you also have Curry and Durant at the same price point, who obviously we'll talk about, but who I have projected as two of my top plays on the slate. So it just makes it so it's really tough for me to get to Vooch.
No, I mean, it really is. There's no question. At the same time, you could see Vooch putting up just astronomical numbers. When it comes down to it, though, from a roster construction standpoint, is it worth it? Let's even say he finishes with 5 more fantasy points than Durant. Are those 5 fantasy points worth it when you're definitely going to have to do something with small forward that you probably don't want to do in order to get Vooch in, and you're giving up good value at center? That's the problem.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he can absolutely break the slate. It wouldn't be surprising at all.
All right, let's talk about Minnesota and OKC. This game with a 228 total. No, sorry, 236.5 total. Timberwolves 1-point favorites at home. Paul George was out, and now he's quote-unquote uncertain. So let's tackle this first. What are you doing? I mean, I'm assuming he doesn't play, but I don't know now.
Right. Yeah, I'm assuming he doesn't play. It's worth pointing out he did not get a midday upgrade, as far as I know. It's not like he was out and now he's questionable. He was being reported out because that's what it says on the game notes or the injury report, and then someone actually bothered to clarify that, which is nice because normally people don't, and that's how you get situations like Anthony Davis last night. So it's worth pointing out that it wasn't like he's out and then he came in and was like, "Oh, I feel great, like let's go." It's just kind of a semantics thing, and I'm still assuming that he's out, but he's not out yet.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't a midday upgrade. It's just no one ever said anything and people assumed. So,
right.
We'll see where that goes. Let me ask you this then: are you assuming he's in or out? Like right now, when you're with your projections, do you have him in or out?
I'm assuming he's out.
Okay. Let's talk about Minnesota first. We'll start with the front court. Karl Anthony Towns, 10-6 on DraftKings, 11-5 on FanDuel. $1,000 more expensive than Vooch on FanDuel, and about, what is he on DraftKings? He's even more. He's $1,400 more than Vooch. Go ahead.
Yeah. Terrence Ross questionable.
If he's
I would like Fournier if Ross is.
Yeah, say that again because I interrupted you.
Yeah, I would like Fournier if Ross sits. I think it would be more minutes for Fournier. It would probably be more minutes for Isaac. Then like Wes Iwundu.
Yeah, there's no John Simmons anymore, so
right.
Probably Iwundu and I don't know. Does Briscoe pick up a couple extra minutes at the 2?
I guess he could, yeah. So yeah, that can change things a little bit. As far as Minnesota goes, the Towns price is just really tough for me. Like he's been playing really well, but if you look at his numbers since the Jimmy Butler trade, when he is playing with Teague and with Wiggins, which is the bulk of his minutes now that they're both healthy, he's averaging 1.41 DraftKings points per minute. If you look at Vooch, he's averaging 1.46. So you have Vooch averaging more fantasy points per minute in his current situation than Towns does in his. Towns is more expensive and will probably play a couple more minutes. Towns is also facing Steven Adams while Vooch faces the mess of a Philadelphia front court. So it's just really, really difficult for me to pay up above Vooch here, especially I don't have our ownership projections in front of me right now, but I just assume that you're not going to get a massive ownership discount going to Towns because he's been playing so well and people will look at that and want to roster him. So I don't really see the advantage in going to Towns in this particular spot compared to Vooch if I'm paying up.
Right. This is the same thinking I have now. I do want to see if we've got an updated ownership projections. There we go. 28 minutes ago. Man, these guys do good work. They always help us out. Make sure we got it right in time for the show. By the way, ownership projections, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, the lineup builder, the deep dive article that Adam and I do every day, laborious, painstaking work, all of the projections for all of our sports, Awesemo, Alex Baker himself, his content, his rankings, his articles, just so much I can't get to all of it now. We don't have enough time to do it. Some free content as well if you wanted to check it out, and our sports betting stuff. You can get all of that well, some of it's free. You can go check out the free stuff. But if you want to get a look behind the paywall and you want 50% off, half off your first month, it's very simple. All you do is click join now or sign up. Sorry, we've just changed it, so I got to be careful here. Sign up. It's now on the left side of the homepage. You click sign up, and all you do is select your plan. Once you select your plan, you will put in your information, which takes a second. All right, very, very simple. And after that, you will click have a coupon. Yes, I do. Deeper Dive, all one word, Deeper Dive, to get 50% off your first month at awesemo.com. And when you do, hop into the Slack chat for the premium members and let us know that you're here. And we'll happily welcome you to the Awesemo family. So come check it out. 50% off your first month. Awesemo.com. We'd love to have you over there. And if you can't do it right now, you don't have the means, come check it out for free. See what free content articles we have and continue watching our show. All right. Anyway, to the ownership, I wanted to hit on this quickly before we move on. I think you made a pretty good point when you're talking about projected ownership. They're virtually, now that we had Vooch is 16, Towns is 17 on DraftKings. So
right.
Like,
Yeah, and to me, since I think Vooch is the better play, there's no reason for me not to just be on Vooch.
yeah, I'm with you. Can Towns still have a very big game? Yes, of course. Like, it's still a spot where he could go nuts. But the $1,400 on tonight is probably going to take you a long way. So preferred Vooch there. The rest of this Minnesota team, they have a significant pace-up matchup. I thought I would have liked them a lot more just because they're facing an OKC team that leads the league in pace since the start of the new year. Actually hasn't been playing great defensively and probably be without Paul George. You do have Wiggins, you do have Jeff Teague, and I will be getting to them, but I thought I'd like Minnesota as a team a lot more than I do today. Where are you at on the Timberwolves?
Yeah, I thought I would too. Teague on DraftKings, I got around between 15 and 20% in my initial crunch. Wiggins, I maybe get some more if Terrence Ross is ruled out because I'll need that exposure to go somewhere. But really didn't get a whole lot of Wiggins, which does scare me, especially if George is out. I think it's an upgrade for Wiggins. But just really didn't get there. Not getting to a whole lot of Saric, got like 10% at 3,900 on DraftKings. And then, as we already talked about, not getting to really any Karl Anthony Towns over Vooch. So outside of Teague on DraftKings, not getting much of this team.
Yeah, me neither. I thought I would. I definitely thought I'd be getting more of them. You have your Saric and that. I'm not anywhere else there. So let's talk about OKC. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit us up on Twitter, in the YouTube chat. I'll try and keep up with it. And of course in Slack chat, just mention us, at Ship My Money, at Laffy, and we'll get to you and try and answer them on the show. Otherwise, Live Before Lock crew, they're coming up next, taking you up till 7 p.m. Eastern time. OKC, Adam, you got Russell Westbrook, presumably no George, we're assuming, and Dennis Schroeder. Let's break down this backcourt because you're clearly getting significant ownership on these two guys, and for good reason.
Yeah, so the not having any Russell Westbrook seems pretty scary to me, but that's where I'm at right now. He obviously can go nuts. It's not a bad spot for him. Minnesota has really taken a hit in terms of rim protection, which we know is where a lot of Westbrook's production comes from. But it's also a position where you have a lot of upside at discounted prices. On DraftKings, you have that entire tier with like Collison, Schroeder, and Teague that are a lot less expensive. You even have James Harden that's less expensive. You have Kyrie at a reasonable price tag. You have Simmons at 8,400. There's just a lot of ways to go that don't involve paying all the way up. Steph Curry, also like my favorite point guard. So on FanDuel, I'm getting some Westbrook. I have like 14%. But again, I have Curry, I have Irving, I have some punts, I have Simmons. It's kind of scary. It's worth pointing out that for the season, and we're only talking, 450, 460 minutes, Westbrook has averaged 1.5 fantasy points per minute without George on the floor, which is basically what he does anyway. So, I would expect moving forward that maybe we see that increase, but we haven't seen it so far over 439 minutes. And on this slate where there are so many point guard options, I'm just not really getting there all that much.
All right. Interesting. So no Westbrook or just not a lot?
On FanDuel, not a lot. On DraftKings, as of right now, I don't think I have any. I'm probably going to change that just to have some, but it's clearly not getting there a ton.
Yeah, another guy I thought I'd have more of. I think initially I had like 5 or 10%, which, to be honest with you, is kind of terrifying. I don't like that. I also, look, without George, I don't know if Westbrook's actually better right now.
Right.
You just talked about it. Now, I will say, face Memphis, literally the fastest paced team right now to the slowest paced team. Big difference there. San Antonio, Pop has always done a decent job of making his life tough. He hasn't had the easiest matchups. Jimmy Butler did a great job against him when they faced the Sixers. So this is easily the best matchup he's had since George is out. But it's definitely tough to get a ton of him. With Schroeder, he's still really inexpensive, and that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, yes, Schroeder's definitely going to be popular, no question about it. I mean, I think on FanDuel he has the highest projected ownership, or second now, right behind Kawhi Leonard, and then on DraftKings. I mean, if Schroeder's only 16% on DraftKings, given that, he played 40 minutes last game, and you know that he's going to get a lot of run, assuming he starts. I don't know. That seems really low.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to add on Westbrook, because I went back and looked since the start of last season without George or Carmelo on the floor, 630 minutes, 1.6 points per minute. So I went ahead and bumped my projection on him just to get closer to those numbers. So I think I'll probably get some on DraftKings now, but still don't think I'll have him as like one of my highest owned guys. Shooter, though, I expect to be my highest owned player on both sites. Assuming George is out. He played 40 minutes last game, like you said. The game against San Antonio on Saturday, he played 31 minutes, but he got in foul trouble in the first half and he picked up 3 fouls. Then the game blew out towards the end, so he lost a couple of minutes there. I have him at 36 minutes. It wouldn't be surprising to me if he saw a little bit more. And he'll play about 1/3 of his minutes without Westbrook on the floor, about 2/3 with Westbrook.
Yep.
He's averaged 0.9 fantasy points per minute alongside Westbrook without George this season. He's averaged over a fantasy point per minute without either of them on the floor. It averages out to about a fantasy point per minute, projecting him for around 36 minutes at a $5,500 or $5,600 price tag. Really no way for me to get away from him.
All right. Me too, or me neither. He's still 55 and 5,600. There's very little risk there, given that we expect him to play this many minutes, assuming, of course, that George is out. Any thoughts on Grant or Adams in the front court?
Yeah, so I'm getting a pretty healthy amount of both of them. It kind of surprised me on Jeremy Grant, but again, he's playing really big minutes as well. He's averaged 0.77 fantasy points per minute in 272 minutes alongside Westbrook without George this season. But, you're still talking about like 36 minutes, and it's not a bad matchup for him. So I don't mind Grant. I like Adams more than Grant. We've seen that this season with Westbrook on and George off, Adams is at 1.07 fantasy points per minute. With both of them on, he's at 0.9. We had seen him really struggle with rebounding recently, but the rebounding numbers go up even when he's playing with Westbrook when George is off, and the price tag's coming down for Adams. So it's a little bit concerning. He hasn't played more than 32 minutes in 5 consecutive games, despite some close games. But even if I project him for 32 minutes, I get him as a good play, and there's certainly a chance he plays more minutes to match up with Towns here.
I think Adams is playing better because he's getting less minutes. I mean,
that's also possible.
He's just getting so many minutes, the most of his career, and we've seen these big men so often really struggle with that. It might not be a terrible thing if he's playing 32 instead of 36 each night, because look, he's rebounding way better recently. He just seems to be fresher, and if that's the case, I'm perfectly okay with it. He's just one more center to add to the mix of a lot of really good centers at that price point. All right, let's talk Memphis and Portland. We've got 3 to go here, Adam. I'm not sure this one will take us too long, but it's interesting. Portland 5.5-point road favorites, 216 total. It's interesting, and we'll start with the road team, because on DraftKings, Lillard is 8,100, McCollum is 6K flat, Aminu is $4,000, Nurkic is 7K. I mean, all of these guys are legitimately priced through the floor on DraftKings. Let's try to break this one down, because if these guys were all priced normally, we wouldn't even be talking about the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah, it's a completely site-dependent situation here. Like, I'm not getting to any of this on FanDuel really, but on DraftKings, where they're priced down, and Memphis does still play slow. They have still been good defensively since the trade, so it's not like they've turned into into like a favorable matchup or anything. But Damian Lillard, I went back and looked, 8,100 on DraftKings. He matched it once this season. He was 7,800 on Christmas Day. Other than Christmas Day, the last time he was below $8,100 was April of 2017. So you're talking about like once a season low prices here on Lillard, 6K on McCollum. My initial crunch on DraftKings only got about 12% Lillard because of how deep the position is, and how much I like Schroeder and Curry. But I got about 30% McCollum at 6K. I got like 20% Aminu at 4K. I have him projected for 30 minutes here. Just, really cheap price tags on those guys. Whereas on FanDuel, it's tougher to get there, obviously.
Yeah, I really wish they weren't this cheap. Like, I really do. So I didn't have to really think about it, but they are, and it it makes me have to have more interest. How many minutes do you have Aminu at?
30.
You have him at 30. Okay, so then what percent do you have? What exposure do you have him at?
22 on DraftKings, 13 on FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, you have to have a decent amount on DraftKings if he's 4K and you have him at 30 minutes. You know, like that.
Yeah, he's my second highest on Blazer on DraftKings.
Okay, yeah,
and my highest on FanDuel.
I would have thought so. And you may have just mentioned this, so I'm trying to juggle a few things at once here. Nurkic?
I mean, if you want to play him, go for it. I'm not getting like any just because of how deep the position is.
Right.
Like I have Valanciunas ahead of him in that game, you know, and at that price point. And then, you know, I have Gasol ahead of him. I have Turner ahead of him. I have Adams ahead of him.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes him a good tournament play because I don't think I'm in the minority as far as liking all these guys. But at the same time, it's just so many guys that I like where ownership's obviously going to be spread out at the position. I can kind of just play whoever I want.
For sure. No doubt about it. And that's what makes him a little less appealing. But Portland in general, whether it be Aminu, McCollum, you know, Lillard is also cheap. One of these guys or two of these guys are going to be really solid relative to their price points, even if it's not a really particularly enticing matchup on paper. They're cheap enough to make it work. What about the Memphis side of the ball, Adam? Avery Bradley's been fantastic lately. I'm sure you've seen this. You wrote today's deep dive, which you can check out on awesemo.com. His usage and he's like almost at a fantasy point per minute. I think he's like 0.99 or exactly 1 fantasy point per minute since he's come to Memphis.
Yeah. So I forgot that I wrote the deep dives. When you said that, I had like an oh shit, I forgot moment.
It's that West Coast shit messing with you.
Yeah. I did write it. It's up on the site. But yeah, I mean, Bradley,
that would have been bad if
again,
that would have been bad if I'm promoting your deep dive and you just never wrote it.
Right. Yeah. Nope. Woke up at 6 o'clock, started writing it. Definitely happened. Just forgot about it. Bradley's price is correct. Like, I mean, it's risen quickly on FanDuel up to 5,900, but on DraftKings at 4,400, I still just don't know how to get away from him because, you know, he's had 2 monster games that kind of skew his numbers where Mike Conley was out. But even with Conley in since joining the team, Bradley has a 20% usage rate and an 18% assist percentage. He's averaging like 0.77 fantasy points per minute, but he's also shot really poorly over those minutes. So, you know, I still think that he's just a completely different player here. You know, I mentioned it on the pod with EMAC last night and on Saturday during the live final slate. Like, just watching that game, every time I looked up, Avery Bradley had the ball. And it's the game where Mike Conley played. But, you know, he had the ball, whether he was bringing it up, whether he just had it, you know, and shooting or whatever. But just so much more involved in this offense than he was with the Clippers, playing reasonably well. And 4,400 for 32 to 34 minutes of him is pretty appealing on DraftKings.
I think it is, too. Did Conley miss 1 or 2 games?
2. He missed last game and he missed one before when Bradley went for like 50.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not in a row though. Yeah, okay, got it.
Right.
Yeah, Bradley's been impressive enough. Look, this isn't about chasing the box score, but it's about saying, look, he's getting shots. Like, he's actually involved in the offense. Another thing, in terms of facilitating, you know, Mike Conley being back doesn't help him. But, you know, 5 assists or so isn't out of the realm of possibility for Bradley, and we haven't seen that in a while. And I think one of the biggest reasons for this, Adam, is just look at this team, right? Justin Holiday, Bruno Caboclo, Joe Val, and Noah aren't exactly going to be dishing out 5, 6, 7 dimes a game. DeLon Wright, fine, but CJ Miles, this is not a star-studded cast. Like, Avery Bradley actually can get it done in this lineup at 4,400. So. Yeah,
and I mean, just, you know, looking back through recent games and looking at the minutes, the only game where he's played less than 29 minutes was the game against Cleveland where he got hurt. And more often than not, he's playing 33, 34 plus minutes.
Right. I've been saying it since he came. If you're deciding between him and DeLon Wright, take the guy that's playing 7 extra minutes per game when Conley's healthy. Yep. And that's Avery Bradley. What do you have for the rest of this team?
Valanciunas on DraftKings. I was actually surprised how much I got in my initial crunch. I have him at 28 minutes. He's averaging 1.3 points per minute since going to Memphis. We know that he's very good on a per minute basis. You know, has a true big to match up with here in Nurkic. It's a good Portland defense. It's not like it's an appealing matchup overall, but he's just such a good player. on a per minute basis that I like him at 6,700 on DraftKings.
How many minutes do you have Jonas playing?
28. I have him at 28. I have Noah at 20.
Yeah, I have Jovel at 28 too. And I didn't get as much as I initially expected, but I got enough to where I feel okay with it. Let me ask you this. We have 2 games to go. When it comes to the centers, you gave your exposures earlier. What's your highest exposure to a center on DraftKings?
On DraftKings, 54% on Gasol.
Okay. He is my highest owned as of now, as of right now as well. And then aside from that, it's spread out a lot, which I'm okay with.
For me, it's actually kind of grouped so I have Gasol at 54, Turner at 47, Draymond at 35, Jovel at 30, Adams at 24, and then it drops off to where I have a handful of lineups of Horford, Siakam, Vooch, Capella, Nurk.
So I lowered Turner. When it comes to Miles Turner, I know that he's priced really nicely, but I have him at assuming you have him at 30 minutes.
31.
You have him at 31. Okay. Yeah, then you just must have him projected higher than I do, which is reasonable enough. But let's move on. We've got 2 games to go. We'll talk Toronto and Houston, and we'll close it with Golden State, Boston. Toronto at home here, 3-point favorites, 228 total. Should be a great game to watch. How great is this game for fantasy purposes if we were to exclude Marc Gasol, who I think we both like a lot?
Yeah, they would be basically useless.
Yeah. This is an interesting one, though. Minutes for Gasol. I have him. I felt comfortable enough putting him at 30. I didn't want to put him above that. And I also don't see him playing any minutes alongside Ibaka, so I figure at 30. What do you have him at?
I have him at 32. The first game he started, he was on pace to play 32 if it weren't for foul trouble and a blowout. Then he did play 32 in his next start. Last game he played 33 in regulation, 5 in overtime. So I have him at 32.
Okay, fair enough.
I have Ibaka at 20, so I have them with 4 minutes alongside each other.
Oh, that's the thing. I don't have many minutes alongside each other in this game, in this particular matchup. If Kenneth Faried plays, I might change that. I think that.
Yeah, I have Faried projected in.
Okay, because if Faried's out, I don't expect that. I don't expect any unless now even their backups for Houston are. I don't see a way that they do that unless Nick Nurse just does it because he feels like it. So as of now, I don't have them overlapping, but I could see it happening. What were you gonna say?
The other thing though is that Ibaka basically just lost all of his minutes last game. So I think that even if they don't overlap, you could very easily just get 16 minutes from Ibaka.
Oh, absolutely. But like I said, here's the thing. I felt comfortable putting Gasol at 30 because I still get a ton of him anyway.
Right.
So
yeah, that's fair.
It didn't make a huge difference for me. What about Kawhi Leonard? Right now, our Awesemo.com ownership projections have him at 27% on FanDuel.
I thought I would have more than I do. Running my lineups right now, I'm just using FanDuel, or I'm using small forward as a punt position, obviously, as I said, and getting just massive amounts of Kevin Durant because I don't know where you stand on him. We haven't talked about it, but I love the Warriors guys here. So I'm basically just getting Kevin Durant over Kawhi everywhere, which, obviously can go poorly. But if people are going to play Leonard, I'd rather just have all the Durant and hope that he wins.
Okay. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Especially when Kawhi Leonard's chalk, it's even harder for me to play him. I don't think I like Durant as much as you do, but we will find out. Before we move to Houston, just make sure we cover all of our bases here. I'm not really on Siakam or anybody else outside of Gasol. Do you have interest elsewhere?
I was getting some Siakam, not anything worth really talking about though. We talked about Kawhi. Danny Green's price on FanDuel is okay. Didn't get a ton, but 4,100 is whatever. Yeah, I mean, Gasol's really it for me.
And obviously you like him a lot.
Yeah.
All right, me too. I mean, if Gasol plays 32 minutes, there's no reason he should ever be priced at 5,700 or whatever he is. That's just absurd. On FanDuel, Gasol's 66. Even that's not bad at all. All right.
Yep. Highest on center there too.
Okay, there you go. There you have it. Houston, James Harden, Chris Paul, Eric Gordon, Clint Capella. The floor is yours, man.
I would like to get more James Harden than I have on DraftKings because 11-1 for him is a pretty appealing price tag. He
I know.
obviously can just break a slate wide open. As of right now, I'm not really getting it. Again, it's because of how much it's because you have so many underpriced guys, like Butler, like McCollum. I love Steph Curry. So I'm not really getting there, but I wouldn't fault anyone for trying it.
Let me mention one other reason. Right now, we have Westbrook projected only 7% higher than Harden. So, like, if you're fading Westbrook to get to Harden, I'm not saying it can't work. I mean, that's worked many times. Actually, just the other day. But I don't think there's going to be a huge ownership disparity there just because Harden is now $200 less expensive than Westbrook on DraftKings.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense too. Capella, I got 11% on FanDuel, which is much more than I got on DraftKings, just as a product of how their pricing works out at center compared to DraftKings. I think he's my highest owned Rocket on FanDuel. Yes.
I'm not on Eric Gordon, but I must ask because I know a lot of people like to play him. This was a discussion Josh and I had today. What are you doing with Eric Gordon?
I have him at like 36 minutes, but I didn't get any.
That tells you enough right there, huh? All right. And I guess we'll wait on this Terrence Ross news as well. It's actually more important than you'd think on this slate. Do you want to move on to the last one here?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one.
All right, yeah, so am I. I'm curious to get your take. Golden State at home against Boston. Boston really needs a win, and the Warriors are only 6.5-point favorites at home, which to me is surprising. 228 total in this one. Klay Thompson has been ruled out. Kevon Looney is out, and Boston, all the guys that we care about are healthy. Let me start and get it out of the way first. With Boston, do you like Kyrie Irving?
Yes.
How much?
I think I have like 25% on DraftKings right now. Wait, nope, that's wrong. I have like 8% on DraftKings. I have like 25% on FanDuel.
Okay. I like Kyrie Irving a lot. There's no question. Do you like Simmons or Irving more on DraftKings? $400 difference.
Yeah, Simmons.
Simmons. Okay. Me too. I do like Irving, but I just wanted to draw that comparison quickly. Outside of Irving, who is underpriced, has not been playing well, but I mean, if there was ever a spot to bounce back, it's this. Are you on Horford? Are you on any of these other Boston players tonight?
Not really. I don't have a problem with Horford. Again, it's just the position is so deep that I'm getting to other guys. If you wanted to, run through those wings with Hayward and Brown and Smart, by all means, they're cheap enough. But there's just other spots that I'm getting to here. Like looking at my FanDuel exposures, like 7% Morris, 6% Tatum, 7% Hayward. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm getting on everyone other than Kyrie.
Okay. Yep, agreed. I don't really see the need to force anyone in there outside of Irving being a very strong play. Now I'm going to flip it over to the Warriors. We'll close it out with this. Adam, the Warriors are a team that from the beginning to the middle to now of the show, you've been talking about really liking them. It sounds like particularly KD and Curry. So I'll stop talking and let you start.
Yeah, so it kind of scares me how much I like them because obviously it's a tough matchup against Boston. But there's a couple of things that I really like here. For one, their price tags are very, very appealing. Both around 9K on DraftKings, both under 10K on FanDuel. On FanDuel, obviously, Durant is also more appealing because of small forward. So you have that. But against Philadelphia on Saturday with Klay Thompson out, we saw Kerr go back to staggering Durant and Curry's minutes, which certainly helps both of them, especially Durant, because he tends to take more of a backseat to Curry offensively when they're together. But I went all the way back to the start of the 2016 season. And for the most part, this is the same team. Like, obviously, you have DeMarcus Cousins now, and he affects this somewhat, but not enough that I'm not taking much away here. Curry's averaged 1.54 fantasy points per minute without Thompson. Durant's averaged 1.48 fantasy points per minute without Thompson. Almost a 38% usage rate for Curry, 33% for Durant, a 25.5% assist percentage for Durant, 28% for Curry.
Ross
and
is
you're
out.
talking about
Ross is out by the way.
1,800.
Keep going.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And you're talking about like 1,800 minutes there. So they've just been it's one more shooter not on the floor with them, and then you factor in that they're getting minutes without each other now, and I just think the price tags are too much to pass up. I will say on DraftKings right now, I'm not playing them together just because there are so many underpriced players on DraftKings. I'd rather have Curry in some lineups and Durant in others. I'm fine playing them together on FanDuel just because pricing's tighter.
All right. Yeah, those minutes are significant, but don't include much DeMarcus Cousins. So I do think that's.
Yeah, I just don't think it matters that much.
All right, fair enough. I mean, he's been the highest usage player on the team since he came. So, do you like Cousins?
Not really on this slate.
I actually like him.
I just have trouble getting.
Yeah, I like him a decent amount, but just with how high I'm on Vooch, it's going to be difficult. But I do still like Cousins here. I give him 30 minutes, and 30 minutes, I'm pretty happy with it. But all right, well, there you have it. Let's do this. Who is your highest owned point guard and small forward on DraftKings? We already know it's KD on FanDuel. Is KD your highest owned small forward on DraftKings too?
Yes.
He is. And point guard?
Schroeder.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Not Curry. He's up there, though, I'm assuming?
Yeah, Curry's up there.
All right. Well, there you have it. As always, thanks for tuning in. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up right after this. Before you head out, hit that thumbs up button, like the video. It helps us greatly, and we really appreciate your support. Also, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always know when our content's dropping next. Good luck tonight, everybody. We will catch you back here tomorrow on The Deeper Dive presented by Awesemo.com.